At his worst moment, Sean Martin said that he received the best advice: simply perspective and gratitude. Survival can look like a lot of different things, and so it's fitting that the healing journey can be just as diverse. And we'll talk about just how that advice made a difference in Sean's own journey. Coming up, Sean and I talk about the power of music, saying it how it is, and what it really means to change. Please note that this episode does touch on suicidal ideation, trauma, and mental health. Please take it at your own pace, and if you need help, reach out to the 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline by calling or texting 988. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Motivation and That. I'm Natalie, your host, and this is where we take hot mess to high potential. Today I'm really excited because I get to touch on a new type of guest joining today, Sean Martin. And Sean is a musician, and you're going to hear a lot about his music, what drives his passion in this world, and what just makes him a wonderfully complex and layered individual in this space and in our world in general. So I appreciate the chance to stretch my opportunities with having a guest on that's not kind of my usual person that I fit with. And Sean, you being willing to be that first kind of venture into this space on Motivation and That. But let me explain just a little bit about who Sean is, who his band is, and then I'm going to let him tell you more about himself. So Sean Martin is the kind of end all be all everything for this band called The Quarantine. It's a grunge punk metal project, and it combines aggressive music with socially critical lyrics addressing politics, trauma, addiction, and overall modern life. And Sean brings to this a background not only in Musicians Institute training, but also service as a U.S. Army Airborne Infantryman. So you have this kind of, again, layered, very kind of do different things in life that came together and are going to intersect in ways that we're going to talk about. And The Quarantine continues to release purposeful music as an independent force in modern rock. And we can't wait to talk about the current album that's out there to stream, to listen to access. And I just want to say before we get any further in, Sean, thank you for your service. Having spent some time with the VA, it is something near and dear that we support our service members as they explore any parts of their lives during or after service. So thank you for all that you have done. And I'd love to hear a little bit directly from you. Like, what makes Sean Sean, and how has this quarantined project and band come to be?
Well, thank you so much, and thank you for your support. I really appreciate it. So yeah, the Quarantined came to be in 2010 in the studio, and in 2012 live. I just confirmed with my friend. We played our first show on Cinco de Mayo in 2012, and so from there, we went on to try and do not just playing around live, but also going after college radio. And at that time, the internet establishment for getting your music out there wasn't really all social media based. It was still very much important to reach out to those alternative types of venues. So we kind of started, not looking at the big gigantic front gates. We were looking at, how do we get in from the moat? What about is there a sewer grate that we can get in from under the thing? What if we catapult ourselves over the top of the wall? What if we do some crazy shit like that? That's kind of like the mentality for The Quarantine, as far as the business side of things independently, because a lot of times you're either not ready or you don't have all of the things to go out and just do a massive tour and jump onto another bill. Maybe you don't have the infrastructure, but you have to work with your strengths and turn those and work with your weaknesses so that they turn into strengths.
Yeah, and this was not a question on the outline that I sent over, so hopefully it's in the line of kind of how you got here. But like, what was the first instrument you picked up? What was the first thing that hit you as like, oh, music is this thing that really speaks to me, and I want to be more involved than just being a listener. Like, I want to be a part of creating it.
Yeah. Well, honestly, I kind of started out from place of performance. I started out being a performer, not necessarily a listener, because I started out when I was 4 years old, doing community choirs. So they were telling me, "Go ahead and sing this line. Everything I do it for you." Yeah, and I'm like, I don't know where that comes from. I don't know where that. It's like it's really sweet when you do it like that, Sean. Okay.
Mhm.
Oh, all right, sure. I'll sing it like that. So from a very young age, performance was very much the thing that I attached to, not just the vibing with it. That didn't really come until much later when I started to pay attention to bigger artists like Michael Jackson and Garth Brooks and Prince and Metallica and Black Sabbath. And then I would even take it into, like classical composers in Vivaldi and Tchaikovsky and Bach and Beethoven. And I'd listen to all of these orchestral things as much as closely as I would listen to Tupac and Notorious B.I.G. So I'm this is from 12 years old. My mom had to try to convince me to not buy Eminem. You know,
Yeah.
we're at the music store and she's like, "You can buy all. I'll buy all the rest of these albums for you if you just don't buy Eminem." And I'm like, "Okay, sure." 2 weeks later, I go and take the money that I saved from her buying me all those albums to go buy Eminem and just hide it from her. So I would still
Mhm.
continue to go after and have a lot of influences, a very wide influences of listening. It was very much uh trying to take it all in, but emotionally speaking, what really drove me musically after I learned how to play guitar when I was 12 was punk music, grunge music, and classic rock like Jimi Hendrix and psychedelic era. Cream especially, that is what really drove me into, you can express some things in this world that are weird. you know let's not just only focus on, oh, the love song, oh, the fucking love song, but use it to a way to express the weird things in this world, you know, the stuff that we don't really talk about, maybe the odd experiences that you had when you were smoking. Oh, what about that? Before that, and with me, it was very much religious based. You know, I was, uh, I grew up in a family that was very much religious based, and a lot of those records that I would listen to before when I was younger, I'd have to hide them. So once I started to just be more open about that kind of thing, it started, opening up a flood of, well, let's start being honest about the world. Let's start being honest about the interpersonal relationships. Why is it that all those people, we don't talk to them? Why is that? Why is it that these other people have way less than we do? And why is it that these people have way more than all the rest of us? Why is it that these people over in this country want to murder us and we want to murder them, but we're still calling ourselves good? What the hell is going on with that? So all of these questions were things that I were pondering when I was 15, 16 years old. And and I came up with the quarantine because it described the reality. It described the human condition of how we separate each other and how we otherize each other instead of realizing the one greatest truth of all, that we are all the fucking same.
It takes right into, because you had a quote that I saw that talked about the importance of music being driven by substance, intensity, and purpose, right? And I think any of us that are avid listeners or engage in it in some way, we all can name the songs that actually invoke some of that in us. And they put words or they put sounds or feelings to the things we often can't put our fingers on. And what you touched on, the otherizing of people. A former guest had said the other others. And I was like, yeah, there's a whole lot of those, right? And when you don't know where you fit, when you don't understand kind of or have trouble processing what's going on, finding that music that has been driven by those same things without even realizing it really can be a triggering moment in life. And, so was it a journey? I mean, you mentioned kind of going from the religious piece, into where you are now, but do you feel that you have always been driven by kind of that core moment, or is that something that you've built on over time, where it's like, hey, you did it once, and now it's easier to do it even more, and it's easy, like it becomes, it's almost a little bit of practice, or has this just been how it's been for you?
Well, the search for authenticity in a world that constantly lies to you means you're fighting an uphill battle all the time. It's the easiest thing in the world to just continuously lie to yourself.
Mhm.
It's real easy. Your life is pretty, relatively manageable at that point when you don't have to ask a whole lot of questions. I was the asshole who asked all the questions, and I stood there with the middle finger until they gave me an actual reasonable answer. That's that's how I am. And that is good and bad in certain situations. Sometimes that's acceptable. Sometimes you will never get into that room doing this, you know? So, um, that's kind of been the journey.
Mhm.
I've in that quest for authenticity, um, means that you have to be the eternal student. You have to constantly be learning and constantly improving and looking not just for reassurance or validation, but for evidence, for techniques, for abilities, for the actionable things in this world to understand the words and the language that we use and figure out the ways to communicate people where they are, not just how you want to talk to them. And utilizing these mentalities that I learned from many different societies, being involved in many different aspects of a community's action, like religion and missionary work and going in evangelicals, that kind of stuff, being the military and being an infantryman in patrol, going around and saying hi to all the people who you might have to go kill later. Then there's the ever grinding aspect of music marketing, of constantly taking 10 million rejections to wait for the couple of one acceptances that you'll get, dealing with not just the culture and the society, but also the interpersonal relationships. Who are the people that are close to you? Are they trying to screw you over? Are they actively looking out for your best interest? Do they understand exactly what you're going after? Or are they just making sure that you're not going farther than that? All of these things are part of my journey directly. And they're obstacles, and what I used to get myself through that whenever I had everything taken from me, whenever I had lost everything that I was going after, when I had every reason to say, I'm the victim now. I don't need to do anything more because this is what happened. If I stayed there, I would have died about 20 years ago. I had to learn how to get knocked down and pick yourself up and keep going further than they ever thought that they would go, and also including yourself.
Well, and I definitely wanted to get into a little bit of that journey that you've been on, right? Because having spent, time in the VA, I know the transition from military back to life, and transition into military too can
Hmm.
be very disruptive in a lot of ways. It's a complete shift from the framework that supported you. And to be honest, we don't do a great job with that transition and that support as a country and as a whole. No matter how many nonprofits you see out there, or even the organizations federally that exist, and a lot of times there's ways for us to explore how do we do better at that. And I wanted to pick your brain a little bit about that transition. And when you mentioned, hey, when I had nothing, or when it was like, oh, where do I go from here? Was it like, what did that, how did the steps in those path look? Because we romanticize, right? We're like, oh, one day you realize that your love has been in this one place this whole time, and now you do it and everything's okay. And that's not how it works. There's a lot of, as you mentioned, obstacles along that path. So, what did that, what did that shift look like for you? And, who was involved in it? Was it primarily self-driven? Were there other people that stepped in, and engaged along the way?
Yes, there was. I started out trying to do it on my own. And I had friends, going to music school. In 2009, I get out of the military. I get out of the military in 2007. I go to music school in 2009. So I had 2 years to kind of reintegrate. I had, girlfriends. I played in other bands. I, had many different other jobs. I, became in my mind, a, a relative living civilian. But when I came to then coming back to music and making music my entire day and everything that I express it through music. I don't talk anymore. I play and people will feel what I'm thinking, right? Like that's the
Mhm,
goal.
mhm.
So you're actively trying to make music a mode of communication, not just something you do. Um, and that helped me in a lot of ways, but it did stunt me. And it wasn't until 2012 after I graduated that I went through the therapy that I needed to deal with all of the things that had happened in the military and in my childhood. Because they're both intertwined when it comes to the mentality of somebody's overall mental health. You can deal with just the issues incurred in service. Yeah, but however, the decisions moving forward are going to include all of that because that's where your mind is at, whether you like it or not. And once you start to understand how to tap into your subconscious and start being able to think about how you're thinking and observe how you're thinking. I didn't come to any of that without a team, big ass team. And I was very, very lucky that um, I was able to be in those situations. I had to apply to go to this inpatient clinic. When I was in the VA psych ward, I had to go and stand in front of a board of doctors. And they all grilled me about everything. It felt like a crazy experience considering that I'm at the craziest point that I've ever been at in my entire life. And now I'm standing in front of a panel of 6 or 7 doctors, and they're all asking me, like, so how do you feel about your future? What do you mean how I feel about my future? I hear chains rattling above me when I sleep. What do you think my future feels like? The
Yeah.
ward above us was the one where the people have to be restricted. They have to sleep, in that. So
Mhm.
that was the ward right above us. We hear the chains dragging on the ground. It was crazy. And we have to, so at that point, like so many different normal faculties were taken from me because through PTSD because I didn't know just how badly the nervous system was affecting everything that I do. And I still have to take nervous system breaks. Even just this last week, 3 days, completely shot for those 3 days. Came on randomly, no reason, no particular reason why, but it just sunk me into this depression. And if I didn't understand what was happening and going on, it could just go and go and go further and further and further down. And you just drink heavily and then eventually you just kind of forget things, but they're still in your past. You still hold a grudge against yourself. That once I realized that was what was happening, then I was able to start having a an understanding of how to deal with it. And so that transition that happened into the civilian world in 2007 was severely delayed until 2013, 2014, when I actually understood what the hell was going on with me. And then I understood how to have coping mechanisms. And then there was the 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 ways to get in front of it, the true understanding of what is going on inside your brain, the chemical makeup of and then identifying those chemicals with an actual feeling. So you know what dopamine feels like, you know what serotonin feels like, you know what cortisol feels like, and you know what adrenaline feels like. And then you can start analyzing yourself and then creating a new input to manage those chemicals specifically Then when you can do that, that only comes from a team of knowledge. Think I knew that shit beforehand? Hell no. Hell no. I'm like, this shit, I'm crazy. You know, that's the language that I had. I feel
Right.
crazy. It wasn't until that I actually had experts be able to explain it to me. And that's what makes my situation very lucky. Very, very lucky. And I know that.
Well, and even calling out that delay, and I mean, it's a long journey. I mean, who's to say in 10 years there's not another thing that you learn about the whole piece, right? And then you process again,
Absolutely.
and we see that a lot. And I think it's a reminder to give grace, right? Someone's like, I got this handled. I've been to therapy. It's all understood. And then like new experience, and it's like, nope, just kidding, just kidding. I'm back to square like three, maybe not one, but three. So
Yeah.
but you bring up chemicals, you bring up nervous system, and we know scientifically that there is a connection with vibrations and music, right, to how our body can react to things. I love sound baths. I'm that person that like give me weird chimes and noises and I literally will fall asleep. I fall asleep in an MRI machine because of the thuds. Like they just like calm me down to like this place. And so have you experienced that as well? Like you found certain things that when you play them, like they almost reprogram certain things that happen or your reactions that happen. Or maybe it's your fans or anyone that's listening that goes, all it took was that song. And like all of a sudden I just like it grounded me. It brought me here or it lifted me in some way. Do you get that? Do you hear about that as kind of a side effect?
Yes, absolutely. And that is more directly, like audio therapy is truly a thing, not just to help you sleep. Like, I mean, there's lots of the whale noises and the rainforest noises and the
Mm,
ocean noises and all those things. And I mean, they help me too. Um, but for me, a lot of times because I'm so audioly driven that n- random noises and stuff makes my brain too active. So a lot of times to help me sleep, it doesn't necessarily work directly when I'm sleeping, but sometimes putting on a movie that I'm very, very familiar with helps just relax your nervous system just a little bit more because you can lay there and still be like, even if it's just on the inside. I'm pretty sure all of us know that. So there absolutely is a great scientific connection between audio and and vibration and us humans, not just with our ears, but because it moves through our entire body. And those vibrations, those slight little vibrations, um, is moving things on a molecular level. So, for example, I can't say that because I'm not a physician that this particular outcome is exactly how it'll be for everyone. But I do know that when I was recovering from knee surgery, I would when I would be mixing music, I would put the speaker right next to my leg and prop my leg up and play the music through my leg. And I could feel it. And it would never hurt it at all. But after 6 months of doing that, even the physical therapist was like, "How in the hell are you able to be this mobile after that? You're normally people aren't like this." I'm like, "It's because I play music on it every single day." Sometimes I wouldn't do all of the stretches because my memory is always not so great about the day to day stuff. I'll get focused on doing things and get taken off all the time. But there's a definite aspect of music healing, and it's in the vibrations.
I think, there's all I've spoken to some other folks that have created for people that are deaf or hard of hearing actual pieces they can wear, and it helps them hear the music because it actually creates vibrations in the internal ear canals and all kind of science that I don't understand. But it just, there are other ways to tap into what it develops for you. And that's kind of the theme through this whole piece, is the healing aspect of all of this that you have done and lived and now sharing with others. But it takes me to the album that you've released just late last year, the Aversion to Normalcy, which you have described as a cathartic confrontation with trauma, resilience, and the illusion of normal. My favorite part of the whole thing, right? This illusion of normalcy that we're all striving for or holding ourselves accountable to. And I would love to hear what does that mean to you? Like, what does this album, the songs on it, the drive to create it, why was this confrontation so important? And what does it translate to people who may be listening to it or interested in hearing it? Like, what's it going to mean to them?
So, so I have a line that goes along with the album, and that's: when tyranny becomes the norm, in order to survive, you'll need an aversion to normalcy. And that is describing the situation not as this is a big, large society in front of me, and I have to assimilate into it. I must be a part of it. Instead, it's saying this is a big, large society that's in front of me. They are absolutely fucking out of their mind. They are absolutely insane. There is no good reason for anything that they do. They are the crazy ones. How do I exist in that society? Do you just go under the radar the whole time? Try to avoid everything? Or do you actually, eventually you're going to come across confrontation because you're going against the society. So how do you then prepare yourself? How do you deal with the reactions to and the feelings of I'm not being accepted? And that's normally a bad thing. And then you have to change your mind and think, I'm not being accepted. Then I'm doing my job. It's a very different mentality. But I think that
Mhm.
if we're going into a society and as a principle and we want to change something, well, better stop assuming that the people you're trying to change are sane. Otherwise, you wouldn't have been here trying to change their insane policies, right? So it's a very this I'm trying to get good people to start thinking of not just the boundaries that you put up for yourself in your interpersonal relationships, but what are the boundaries and responsibilities from a person to a institution, to a society, to a government, to the people who own you, rule you, your jobs, your bosses, your shareholders. What is your responsibility? What is your responsibility when you see that they are crazy?
And
And
it's a scary place to go, right? So I think, like, creating this, there's a movement aspect, right? It's like, be unique, be the disruptor, do that thing, but also you're not alone, ironically, in this. There are other people who probably feel very much the same way. So don't fully be afraid that you will be thrown to the wolves if and when you find that voice and you start using that voice is a little bit of the element I hear, right? Because honest the that level of disruptor is, there's a lot of people sitting there that probably don't realize the power they can or might have if they did something.
yes, absolutely. The power of the voice,
Mm.
of an articulate voice that is thought out, has more power than I think most people realize. When you can stay focused on a particular problem and follow it through to the end, not just bitch and complain about it, but follow a solution through to the end to make it better for everyone around you, because you're adamant, because you're passionate, because you're knowledgeable, and because you have empathy, you will create a solution that is better than what exists. It's important to remember that that is the power. It's not going about it violently. It's not going about it burning everybody down. It's not going about it in the way that you see, uh, happen in politics, this dirty mudslinging politics that's been going on forever. Before, it wasn't so big of a deal. Now it's so big of a deal. Why? Because people put more weight to it. Why? Because real solutions weren't being offered. What is the counter argument to all of fascism? Freedom and independence, the ability to do things on your own, and how that creates more life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness than any kind of overarching security ever will. This is why we have the sentence of, if you give up your liberty for security, you deserve neither. This is why. And so I wanted to play out that situation, that scenario for people in an album, because not only have I seen it, I've lived it. Not
Mhm.
only have I gone against major, huge things that were way bigger than me, but I fought them in my own way with finding my own level of success to get out of it. And that success usually was survival. But now I'm trying to take it into, let's make it as successful in the world, and the not just for me, but for my entire society. Because what is the point of me being solely successful when everyone else around me is absolutely struggling and dying? To me, it just doesn't make any damn sense. So I want to try to give that example for people who are creating music, for people who want to be role models, for people who want to make an art expression that says something to people. I want to start giving them an example. Let's start getting deep with it. Let's stop with the superficial bullshit. Let's try to make some art that makes people want to do the right thing and critically think. And that's what this is about.
Well, and I think it comes at a beautiful, perfect time, right? So we have this element of, and I'm going on a tangent here, so apologies, but we have this infiltration of my favorite topic on every episode I've done, AI, into the world, right? So we're hearing AI music come up. We're hearing all these people who now think that they can do all of this work themselves be like, I'm just going to do that. I'm going to design my own stuff. I'm going to do this old thing. And it's almost now hit this wave of I've realized how much I can't do myself and how much I don't want to pay a mega box place to do. And the amount of small businesses I have discovered in the last 3 months because AI has taught me I can't do it. And it has also taught me the other people who think they can do it that are doing, like, have not utilized the expertise around them. And I mean, as far to go, like, hey, can I get an opening song written for this or for that? Like, not assuming that some algorithm can make it be what you need it to be without the human behavior element associated with it. And I think too, and it's a shout out. It's funny, I'll connect you after this, but we have a little indie radio station that just popped up out of nowhere a couple weeks ago that they're like, we are tired of the same 40 songs on the radio. We are going to play specific indie music. And when we say indie music, this is what we mean. And we have a singer songwriter room popping up in town that I had no idea was coming. And I'm like, oh my God, are we going back to this place of like weird community power pieces because we realize how much we've given up in the process to just assume an Amazon can do it or a Walmart can do it for us, and they can't. So I think that like this, it's almost, it feels like a thematic, like, you know, like music set of motivating component that can play underneath this movement that we're in right now is this whole idea of we're there's a whole generation of people going, what the fuck is this normal thing I've been aiming for so long? It kind of sucks. It's no fun. Like, I want to do something different. And so I think it's a scary feeling at first view, right? Of who's going to think I'm weird or who's going to think I'm different and what does that mean? And realizing that it's not. It's like the normal is actually to be completely not normal.
Yeah. Yeah. You bring up some very good points. I would say that in the process of human exploration, what we normally go through is a process of, can we do that? And then after we figure out that we can do it, we go, oh, should we? Should we? We need to do the fucking opposite.
Yeah.
And with AI, we have a very unique situation where I think people are starting to realize, because can I create an entire song with AI? Yes. I see the Viking dudes all the time. And if you don't know those videos are fucking AI, you're absolutely stupid. Stop it. Stop it. Second of all, we're coming into the process of coming across that thing, should I? So when we start to look at AI to fill in the gaps of what we don't know instead of what we can do ourselves, and use our strengths forward, and then use AI to fill in our weaknesses until we understand what those are and then fill them in ourselves. We can use AI to be that bridge, the gap of the knowledge that we don't have. But if you use AI to create everything, then that's when you're going to get the six-fingered hand and be like, well, it's good enough, I guess. You get the idea. It's a hand. No, you
Mhm.
want to be specific, especially when it comes to a business plan. You can't have no six-fingered hands in your business plan. I hope you guys get the metaphor there. But the point is, and third, this is bringing up the exact thing that technique and ability is truly what makes you human. When you develop yourself and you invest in yourself, then you're always going to see a dividend. So why aren't you investing in yourself all the time? That's truly the face of the question that we've been faced with, that we've had to confront since 2020, since COVID. And I mean, for me, I was asking this question before I was 21 years old. Is life too short to go after what you really want? And my answer was, it is way too goddamn short. You better hurry up and start doing what you want. Stop hurry up and waiting. Hurry up and get where you need to be. That it was a fire was lit under my ass, literally. The bomb blew up. My Humvee exploded into a fire. I had to dislocate my shoulder in order to get myself out of a fiery inferno. I literally had a fire burned under my ass to realize that life was too short. The rest of the world came around in 2020 when we realized, man, everyone around me is dropping dead for no good reason. What the is going on? Life's too goddamn short. It's time to start building up our ability to start investing into ourselves, to realize that the investment in community starts from treating yourself the right way. Then once you learn how to treat yourself the right way, you start to realize that loving people is not loving them the way you want to be loved, but loving them in exactly the way that they need to be loved. Caring for someone is about giving them what they need, not just the normal stock box thing. Here you go. Here's your, program, what you need. All you need is a bed, right? That's all you need. So go fuck yourself then. No, it needs to be specific. Help needs to be specific. So when we start approaching our community in that way, and also start using government to help people the most instead of just corporations, then we've actually got a society that sustains itself instead of one that's constantly fighting against each other for the basic necessities, which is what we have right now.
And I'm going to pull this back because the one thing I wanted to touch on, and it may feel disconnected at first, but it will connect, is there, we know back when we look at healing journeys that healing journeys are very unique and sometimes they require some strange things to help us get through them. And one thing that has been the very hot topic in the veteran space has been using psychedelics and other holistic alternative treatments versus just handing over the Zoloft and the Prozac and all of those kind of things and sitting in front of a six physician panel asking, how do you feel? Are you crazy? And so much of that has been, I think, delayed and held back because of the desire of certain groups to have control over what can we tax, what can we not, who can get it, who can, and you've been very vocal on saying, hey, some of these things are common sense. Like, put a voice to it now that you have kind of this advocacy voice. What are some of the things that, anyone who's listening should know about these alternate treatments for PTSD, especially, and how powerful they can be from someone who kind of knows it, lives it, within it? And I mean, you mentioned, hey, that when I smoked last, that inspired a song where I wanted to talk about it afterwards because, it opens up a different set of feelings. Take us into that space briefly, so that people, I think this is a topic they avoid a lot, right? Is like, oh my God, we can't make that legal or we can't make that accessible. And it's like, no, get over it. There are definitely reasons why we need to have the conversation.
Yes. So should I keep it TikTok friendly?
No, I mean, I'm fine. The whole point of this podcast is to go to the places that we don't usually go to. So
okay, great. So
take us there.
marijuana. Okay, so let's understand first off that we have a cannabinoid system in our body that is directly connected to our nervous system. Every human has it. So let's first understand that that is defined fact, scientific biological fact. No other drug has an entire system built into our normal systems that is made specifically for processing and distributing THC to every single part of your body. There's no other drug that has that. So let's first understand that cannabis and humans are like peanut butter and jelly. They're meant to go together on a biological level, on a scientific biological level. So let's first let's establish that as fact. So then, second of all, when you have a nervous system disorder like mine, where you need to be able to tap into that nervous system and put a lever into it so that you can control where it goes, like a rudder. Well, marijuana and the cannabinoid system is that direct connection. So it's very, very important for the scientific community, the advocate community, the government community to realize that you can try to legislate this way, but it's never going to work because cannabis is literally built into our systems. It's built into our bodies. And right now, they want to get, real happy with legislating away women's autonomy. So I know that they want to do it. They are perfectly fine with denying what is naturally human. We know that already. So the fight is in front of us. However, talking about the effects of it and having people realize what it can do for them is the perfect example, the philosophical example that we have to it, that not everything that is legal is moral, and not everything that is moral is legal. So once we start bringing these fundamental truths up into our normal understanding, are we all going to collectively see what needs to be done to make this world a better place? Because sitting around smoking a joint with everybody was exactly the way that we squashed beef for thousands of years.
Well, and I don't think even people realize probably the difficulties that this has created in groups like the federal health system who cannot prescribe medical marijuana to a veteran who qualifies under every other way to get it. They can't do it. And they can't even really refer you to someone or
Yeah.
answer questions. Like, it is so constrained. And then federal employees are under very strict, things. Like when I was an employee, I couldn't get medical marijuana. I stepped
Hmm.
out. Very first thing I did was go get that medical marijuana card the day that I got
Yeah.
off of federal employment.
Oh, yeah.
And, because it does, there is every single thing in this world can be overused and overabused. Everything, food, water, we know alcohol can. It's not to weaponize one thing and be like, oh, people abuse that, or oh, it's gateway, or oh, it's this, they are control efforts by those that want to have the power over those conversations and those areas. And it happens every day and we don't even realize it. And this is just one where I think it becomes very visible. So I would say, I don't know anyone who has gotten a medical marijuana card or smoked it on their own and been like, that was the worst thing that ever happened to me. Like, you hear about it randomly when people are like, oh yeah, it opened me up to all these other worlds. But like, everyone that I know is like, yeah, no, I hit my pen once a week, or, it's on Sunday nights before the Sunday scaries hit and it's what gets me through it, kind of thing. And so I think we have to give power to those voices and honestly advocate the whole way around, even if it's not for you. I guarantee you know someone that it
Yeah.
benefits. I guarantee
The,
you.
the, the truth is you're actually touching on something very important there. Marijuana, actually, in cannabis, in its forms right now, in all of its forms, is not for everybody. It's important to realize that what cannabis does is it opens up your mind and your body to feel normal, to feel a normal. And what I mean by that is balanced, a balanced baseline of your nervous system. That's what normal is supposed to be, where you're cool, you're fine, you're not in pain, you're not worse off than you were before, you're mentally present, balanced. When you get to that point, your natural inclinations are going to come to the forefront. So if your natural inclinations are, I am pissed off about all of this stupid shit, including you, guess what you're going to do? Guess what you're going to do? If your natural inclinations are, man, I am just so happy to finally just feel relaxed. I can't wait to watch this, this episode or whatever and eat some fucking Cheetos and just relax because I haven't been able to relax for the last years. Guess what you're going to do? So it's important to realize that cannabis opens up us to have freedom, to not be held back by the normal aches and pains, the simple aches and pains, to not be held back by the mental fog, to not be held back by the self-conscious issues that we always put in front of ourselves, tell ourselves that we shouldn't. It doesn't inhibit your inhibitions. It makes you sharper and clearer. It makes you understand much more what's going on. Maybe a lot of things that you've been denying your brain. Cannabis removes the lies that you tell yourself. And sometimes people can't handle that.
Well, and I know, for me, very anxiety and migraine driven is where it, tags in, and you don't realize how much things like anxiety steal from you in your day until you calm down the crisis that is just constantly, it's SpongeBob, right? With the room on fire in your brain. And it works like a little bit of a fire extinguisher for a little bit, and it's like, "Yo, no, just let the bonfire in that section, like, you're good. It doesn't need to be fully put out," but, and so I think the way that a lot of us were taught to digest this idea was that it muted you, and instead I was like, "No, it just turned the damn volume down, like, it's so loud sometimes." And to your point, there's so much science around like what strain works for you and what all, and that's, I'm glad we can openly talk about that in some different places, but there's still so many restrictions and red tape. So it's really tough. I'm so glad that you brought a little bit of that science and knowledge to the listeners today, because a cannabinoid system is new to me. So now I get to go look into that, and I will stick a reference in the show notes so people can look at it.
Yeah,
Um,
please.
as we go. So, as we get kind of into the close up session of this, and we'll talk about where to find the album and where to find more about you and the band, you mentioned early on this idea of, hey, there's a lot of rejection in this industry, and there's a lot of rejection everywhere right now. Like, job markets are really, really tough. Online dating has made rejection really common in the relationship world. How have you, over the course of this time, manage that rejection? Do you have any tips for those that are like going through their first round of things that you have found have really helped, and how to celebrate the wins when you do get them?
Yeah. And let me start and preface this by okay. No, I'll just go into the first thing. When it comes to the music industry rejections, well, no, there's an element of this that includes in personal rejections too. Just because you're not right for right now doesn't mean you're not right at all. This is a very important thing. Just because one person rejects you doesn't mean that you're ugly. It doesn't make any, that doesn't follow logically. It's taking one example and blowing it up. So we have to be very careful not to do that, because that's the fallacy that all of our minds goes to. So once you restrict that, then you're going to stay on a relatively balanced level. The second thing is that they did that for a reason. What was the reason? And if the reason is a legitimate, valid thing that you do need to work on, well, then you just gave yourself some homework. And then rejection becomes the ladder that you use to become better than you were before. That's the best case scenario, right? So you get there in 2 steps instead of a whole bunch of running around worrying. Third, when it comes to rejection in yourself, and you know every day that your video doesn't get 10,000 views, it can feel like a rejection. It's important to realize the system that we have set up right here, for all of social media, is not a reflection of your personal worth or value. How many people see your podcast is not a reflection of how good the podcast is. How many people listen to your music is not a reflection of how good the music is. It's very important to realize that these measurement sticks that we have are not your value. Let me rephrase that. They're not your worth. They're your immediate value. Your worth is more than your immediate value. Your worth includes your potential. Your worth includes all the different things you have planned, the things that will come in the future when you build upon them. Your value is speculative in the moment. Don't put any actual emphasis on your value. That changes. It's speculative. Means based on the perspective, it'll be different. This is an important thing to realize, that that's how the world is looking at this. Don't take it personal. Even a rejection from a person in dating, don't even take it personal, because most of the time it's not even about you. It's about them.
Mm-hmm.
So it's important to realize that when you're dealing with a society, the most worthwhile thing that you can do for yourself to increase your overall worth is to have an establishment of who you are. Know thyself first and foremost. You've got to, because then you can go in knowing your worth. Even if someone devalues you, you can prove them wrong through your ability and technique that you fostered in yourself. So when you do that, someone can devalue, sure, fine, go right ahead. And I'll easily crush it just because that's my worth. See it?
And I think it's, I think we're actually going to wrap on that note, because it is such a beautiful way to bring this all together, which is the idea of when you know yourself, then you can invite people to know you. Before you know yourself, who are you inviting them to know,
And
right?
what for?
Some
Yeah.
cookie cutter like mask that you've put on, or, that now you're afraid it's always going to get ripped off. And, what I hear from you, and, obviously from the extent of time over the work, is that you've invited people in to see who you are, Sean, through your music and through this work that you do, and been very just transparent and open about it. And I think through that, people may only latch on to one little piece, but that one little piece contributes now to who they know they are, or one little piece that drives them to explore that next little component, because we are so freaking unique, and everything that we do and every one of our experiences, this has made us us. And we're so consumed with striving to be what we consider to be that normal element, that we forget how beautiful those unique components are. So I think that just really evokes a feeling. You haven't played one little thing of music on here, but yet you are creating like verbal music with this and bringing that same feeling about. And I think it's really, going to resonate with people. So, Sean, what are some of the final things you want to remind folks of as they transition out of today's episode? And where can they find what we've talked about today? Where can they stream that album? Where can they find more about you? And, I think you're located in California, so anyone that's listening out in that way, might even be able to track you down for a performance that you're having. So tell us a little bit about that, and close us out. What do we take away today?
Sure. So the thing that I'll leave you with is the best advice that I got when I was the most suicidal. And that is, when you're in that place, you're missing two things. One, perspective. You're missing the greater picture. You're only seeing it from one particular area. Either it's just yours or through somebody else's eyes at you. So when you start gaining perspective on the situation, on yourself, on the other people, on the real, you start to realize what is real, not just what I feel. You start to open up your mind into greater possibilities than just this is it. Second thing you're missing to take you further is gratitude. Gratitude, at least for yourself, even if you are completely surrounded by assholes and nobody deserves any of your gratitude. Guess who still does? You. So when you remember those things, you can get through the worst feelings that you've ever had in your entire life, even the ones that you don't even know yet, with perspective and gratitude. So with that, go to thequarantined.com to go and listen to more of the music. Follow us on social media at The Quarantined, on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. Search for us on Bandcamp, thequarantine.bandcamp.com. We have our full discography there that's not available anywhere else, and you can buy it. Highly recommend buying it. You can name your own price. We have a merch store coming very soon. We're going through the first initial tests of it, so watch for that soon. It's going to be a streetwear brand all on its own. It's going to be great. It's going to be the best thing you've ever seen. And and on that, we've got tours coming up. We've got more videos. Follow us on social media to stay connected with the content. I'm going to be doing all kinds of, performance and stuff with this setup I've got here. In fact, today I'm going to be working on it. So we've got lots of great things coming.
Fantastic. And if you need all that repeated again, either hit rewind and listen, but also go to the show notes, because you're going to be able to find all of those links in the show notes today to hear directly from Sean, hear his music with The Quarantined. And Sean, I wish you the best of luck, because really this is just, anytime we talk to people here on Motivation and that clearly are building space for change that we may not even be able to fully identify yet, right? It's just this feeling that something is brewing, and whatever it turns out to be is going to be important for someone somewhere. And that is a beautiful thing. And I'm so glad you reached out, wanted to come on, and that we were able to make this connection. So Sean, thank you so much. And thank you everyone for listening. Join us again soon for another conversation of taking hot mess to high potential. Talk later.